Oh, hey, everybody. Looks like we're live. Get my chat set up here properly. Give me, ma'am, a tug of the ear. All right, let's see who we've got with us so far. Zini, Zine Machine. Alan, hello. No shrooms tonight, actually. Michael, hello. All right, everybody, we're going to get right into it. I did take my fish tower down today because one of the things I wanted to do to it during the maintenance, I wanted to do a maintenance on live cam tonight, but the post that I was using to prop it up was still whitish, and I wanted to paint that while I had it down, and I can't really do that in here in the basement. And I also don't like to do it when my wife's home because the smell of the paint and everything really bothers her. So I did that this afternoon while she was at work, and I went outside in the bitter cold and got that sprayed real quick. And so it's ready to be reassembled. But I can already tell you, this thing is going to be a pain in the ass. Cleaning the glass on that thing was nuts. It was disgusting. It was like a process. I had to go in with a paper towel and do like a preliminary wipe down, and then I had to pour all the green water out of it, and then I had to go down and wipe it again with Windex. And then once I got that all cleaned down, I had to look at all the spots that I missed, and I had to go back in with the melamine sponge and get all that stuff out. Then I had to go back in with the paper towels and the Windex and rinse all the stuff that I'd scraped up with the melamine sponge out, and that was just the inside. I still had to clean the outside. I had to wipe the top down, get all the fingerprints off of it. It's a pain in the ass. It's a lot more than just, wiping down the inside of the glass on a tank. So I'm not going to not have it. I like it. I think it's really cool. Just letting you know, it is a pain in the ass when it comes to the maintenance on watch your head. God damn, every time you come through here, you're banging your head on shit. So I don't know whether you want me to put the tower up now during feeding and do that first, or do you want to just get the tank fed and then we'll put the tower up later as part of the stuff we're going to do. We got a little sponge filter right here that we are going to install in the Great Lizard Queequeg Quads tank. And I think that is all we're going to do maintenance wise tonight. We're going to install that filter and get the tower put back up. So let's get caught up on a few comments here, see what your thoughts are. Would you rather me put the tower up now and then feed, or do you want to see me just start feeding and we can do the tower in a little while? I'm doing well enough. Oh, Dumbo Dragon Guppies sound awesome. Hello, Dade. How are you this evening, Janice? All right, let's get on with the tank feeding. Shamu, my wayward son. Oh, angelfish and black skirt tetras get along just fine. You can have them together easily. All right, let's just get on with some feeding now. We'll let some more people gather around, and then we'll do the maintenance stuff after we do the feeding and just sort of stick with the normal routine. But I had a miserable day yesterday at work. My customers' houses were icier and worse than I imagined they were going to be. I mean, it was like walking on a slanted skating rink. It wasn't icy snow. It was just smooth ice. So every step I took, I had to stomp on the ice hard enough to break my foot through the ice so that I could plant that foot and then bring the other foot up and stomp a hole in the ice again. And I literally had to just walk around my customers' yards doing that. I almost fell down about 50 times. And of course, you know, all the flailing and twisting and, you know, trying to keep my balance and everything, you know, was paying its price on me. And I did fall down once and I hurt my shoulder and my wrist. But it was just absolutely exhausting. I do have cleats for my boots. They're just like, you know, almost like galoshes. You strap them on, except it's more of like an open framework. And then the bottom has carbide spikes on it. And you can walk up the side of an ice wall with these things. They're awesome. And I forgot to take them with me. I got caught up in making sure I had enough coffee to go with me yesterday. And I forgot to take my damn ice cleats. And my day would have been a piece of cake if I had those. I could have just walked around like normal. Instead, I did what I did. And oh my God, I was so exhausted and sore by the time I got home. And so that's how my day went. And then I decided I was going to settle in. It was my night off. I was going to just enjoy some mushrooms. And I just had a miserable experience on my mushrooms last night. Not in the bad trip sense. But I just, sometimes when I take mushrooms, like the very first beginning part of it, my nose will get real runny. My sinuses get a little stuffy. My eyes water. I yawn a lot. It's just this weird phase I go through. And then 30, 40 minutes later, like whoosh, it's just gone. And I'm feeling good. And I got 5 hours ahead of me. Last night, that was not only the worst I've ever, like, I mean, it literally just stopped my fucking head up. Like I had a bowling ball inside my sinuses. My eyes were watering so bad. I just had tears running down my cheeks. My nose was all dribbling into my mustache. My ears were popping. I couldn't stop yawning. And that went on for 5 straight hours. It finally went away. I took the mushrooms at 7:30 in the evening. And at 11:30, it finally just whoosh, like I got over it and I felt good. I mean, physically, I felt fine the whole time. It was just my head. I was relaxed. I was trying to enjoy the music. I was in a good headspace. The only thing that was fucking with me was the fact that I couldn't breathe and my ears were popping. I couldn't stop yawning. Like all I did was sit there and blow my nose and wipe my eyes for 5 hours on mushrooms. Like that was the whole trip. It was me just blowing my nose and wiping my eyes and trying to breathe. Weirdest, like I don't know what the fuck happened or why my head just blew up like that, but my God, was it miserable. Again, the trip part of it was fine. It was just the physical swelling in my sinuses or whatever. It just blew my head up, and it was just fucking weird. And so that was it. That was the whole entire trip. At 11:30, I was like, well, that's over with. I guess it's time to go to bed now. And I went upstairs and went to bed. And so I'm not even taking a chance on going through that shit again tonight. So I'm definitely taking a night off of the mushrooms. All right, let me get it caught up on some comments. Why little blue badges now? I have no idea. You'll have to ask YouTube. Janice's mushroom is right there. She's got the blue shield, which I've never seen before, and then the mushroom is next to the blue shield. Interesting. Yeah, but it's still got the crown and the number 1. I don't know. YouTube's always doing different stuff. I stopped paying attention a long time ago when they send me emails telling me they're updating this and updating that. Whatever. I just do my live streams and just, you know, just roll my own way. Whatever. YouTube's going to do what YouTube's going to do. I guess since I am a YouTuber, it might be helpful to at least kind of know what they're doing, but I don't really care. All right, let's move on to the next tank. And don't forget, if you're just joining us, we are going to be reinstalling my fish tower that you can see sitting on the floor right there. The other thing that I needed to do, let me see, where is it? Here it is. Where the hell did I put that? Well, God damn it. My mother always used to tell me when I was a kid that I would lose my head if it wasn't attached. And I do believe she is right about that. All right, let me get you over to feeding the fancy goldfish. We'll turn this light out for the time being. And I will recommence my search for the missing post. All right, one of these knobs unloosens you. There it is. All right, try to pay no attention to my little wheeled cart over here, but you can see all this fucking glare. I'm going to see about doing something. You know what I can do? And I'll even let you guys watch me do it. Back here in the corner, I built this thing a long time ago for this very purpose, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, and I don't use it very often. But I took an empty container and filled it with concrete, and I put a post in the concrete, so I have a upright pole. And then through the top of the upright pole, I ran another piece of wood. I put a PVC T-junction on it so that the T goes down on it, but I still have a hole that goes through horizontally. And through that horizontal hole, I ran another piece of wood. And so I've got this black backdrop that I can position wherever I want when I need to. So if we position that right here, that should be a game changer for the glare, although the glare that's coming off my little table here is because of the tank itself. So we'll move that out of the way. Now it should be a lot less glare on there. You won't really be able to see all those lights from the 125. See what I do for you people? Cecil, how are you this evening? Rosie, hello. Yeah, I wonder if the shield represents the like a membership badge, and then the icon, you know, next to the membership represents how long you've been a member. It just seems weird that they always add shit. And the stuff they always add. Oh, nice, Cecil. I am not flying high tonight. My Wednesday's members live stream, I was practically stone cold sober. I think I did one hit off of a bowl the whole evening. Again, I'm taking a break from the mushrooms tonight, as I just explained. But I also ran out of weed, more or less. I got a little tiny bit of my hash oil. I've got like one little bud left, and I'm down into super conservative mode. I did have some cash from last month. I have a customer that always pays me in cash, and I needed to go over to Westminster to meet Kane today. I had an empty 10-gallon tank that I wasn't using, so I gave that to him. And while I was over there, I decided I would check the weed store, and I got a half ounce of Afghan skunk for $72, but after taxes, it came out to be $82. So I dropped $80 on weed today, which fucking just kills me. I've been growing my own weed for almost 20 years now. I just don't pay for weed, and spending $80 on some store-bought shit is just killing me. It's like getting free, awesome, you know, homemade hamburgers at home, or having to pay to go to McDonald's. And then when I opened up the container, I found that the whole entire thing was filled with these little tiny, like that's it. Those are the buds. The whole entire half ounce is these little tiny. I mean, the upshot is I don't have to break it up to do bong hits. I can just pull like pre-sized bong hits directly out of the container. And there's no stems in it. I'll give it that, because there's not enough bud material for to have stems in. But it's like an entire half ounce of little tiny popcorn buds. So what are you going to do? Anyway, I'm going to be doing a few bong hits tonight, and that's probably about it. And speaking of which, we may as well kick the show off. So cheers. I did remember to bring in my ashtray tonight, though. So my drug of choice tonight is basically going to be nicotine and caffeine, because I'm still drinking my coffee, which I should probably wind up with, since it's already after 8 o'clock, and I would like to get to bed at some point tonight. Although I suppose it doesn't matter because I'm not doing shit tomorrow. The high temperature tomorrow is supposed to be 16 degrees, and it is supposed to be very windy. So that's probably going to be like a sub-zero fucking wind chill being out tomorrow. We don't have anything we particularly need to do. Aha, there it is. I put this thing right where I was going to need it, and where I was standing, I couldn't see it, but it was just leaning up against the tank. So this is what I had to spray paint. This is the little post I made out of PVC pipe that sits on the bottom. The T junction on the bottom just spreads the weight out, so I don't have like a pipe pushing into the plastic on the bottom of the tank. And then the top, you can see where I took a Sharpie and I went over all the purple with a black Sharpie, but it didn't come out all that great. And so I didn't worry about the lower portion. That'll get covered in green and everything else. You won't even notice that after a while. But I didn't get the top and the inside, and it was just white when you looked down on it. And so today I got all that sprayed, and you can see I got a little notch cut in there. So the edge of the tank just sits right on that little notch, and then that sits on the bottom, and it holds it up perfectly. So we got to install that, and we'll be putting the tower back in. And then, as I have already said, we got a sponge filter we need to put in the 40 over here, so we'll be doing that too. All right, let us moveth on. I will not be turning the lights out on these guys anytime tonight and then turning them back on. That was a fucking insane reaction I got the other night. I've never seen these fish freak out like that before. I found that quite distressing. I was afraid they were going to injure themselves. They were so panicked. Oh, those big silver dollars missed it because the current flows like in a clockwise rotation in this tank, so all the food's drifting away from them. They're normally hanging out more down at this end of the tank, and when I put it in, it flows down to where they are. This time it went in behind them, and they're going to have to figure out it's in there. That is weird that the nicotine doesn't have any effect on you, Zini. Yeah, I kind of thought about that too, Zini. The mods, are represented by the shield because, you're there to protect me or whatever. Again, when YouTube does stuff like that, they don't do anything like meaningful or that makes an actual difference to my channel. They just do this dumb bullshit that's supposed to trick people into getting excited about, ooh, look, I got a fucking badge. Ooh, that makes this a better experience. Granddaddy Purple. I grew Granddaddy Purps once. I don't know if I didn't do it right or whatever, but I was not happy with the Granddaddy Purps. I didn't even grow a cutting of it. I didn't even do a second plant because I was so dissatisfied with the first one. No, I don't see the badge looking like a butt. I could see it maybe looking like something that a butt sat on and left two depressions at the top. Well, I normally don't run out either. I mean, even when I was going through my horrible phase with the bugs and couldn't get on top of the bugs and everything, I, generally didn't have to worry about it too much except for that one little stretch. This is just one of those situations where I've really cut back on how much I've been growing. I used to just grow so much that I had it coming out of my ears, and I just don't need that anymore. So to save electricity, I've only been operating 110. I've only been growing one or two plants at a time. And I had a Super Silver Haze in there that would be coming due about now. It would have been finished if it hadn't died. But every now and again, I have a plant that just dies unexpectedly, like somebody turns a switch off. It's healthy and green one day, and the next day it just starts wilting. and it never recovers. And it doesn't happen often, but I've seen it, you know, over the years. And this is one of those plants that did that. It just died. And so I got another plant started immediately, but it's fairly small and it's only just now at like the pom-pom white poofy things stage of growing bud. So I've got weeks before I'm going to have more weed again. So normally I would have been all right if if everything had stayed on schedule, but I had an unforeseen incident that has caused me to run out again. So I'm hoping this half ounce of these little popcorn buds, if I just take it really easy, will last me until I can get to something new. I can't imagine it's going to last that long. But again, I do have a customer that pays me cash, and I usually save the cash for buying like my Nick juice or, dumb shit like that. And so I'll use it if I have to. At the end of the month, I'll get another little bag of weed or something. I looked at that. I was going to get like a gram of, oil or crumble or something like that. But the prices for that, for a single gram of it, it was like the cheap stuff was like $35, and then it went all the way up to $55 for a gram. I was just like, I can't fucking do it. Can't spend that kind of money on shit that I normally get for free. Well, it's not technically free, but for all intents and purposes, it may as well be. That's no particular kind of angelfish, just a random angelfish from the PetSmart. Yeah, I love the way those silver dollars in there school together. And a lot of times the other fish will join them. I'll get both of the cichlids. The angelfish will stack up in there with them. I am a big fan of the angelfish myself. I'm a big fan of the woodwork too. Haha. You thought I was going to say I'm a big fan of the wood. I was going to say that, but I heard what I was about to say, so I changed it. My filters are working tonight. Maybe I should take some mushrooms. It's too late now. I'm not about to start on a mushroom journey at 8:30. I have to go start making the tea and all that. It'd be 9 o'clock before I even got it in me. And again, after last night, I'm just gun shy. It wasn't a bad trip. I've had bad trips before. Well, I've had a bad trip before, and this wasn't like that at all. I was in a good headspace, physically felt great. I was just frustrated. I wanted to just chill and enjoy the music and wind down after a shitty day, and I just couldn't. I couldn't fucking breathe. My head was all stuffed up. Oh, God, it was just miserable. 5 hours of that. Let me shoot. I want to ask Zini a question real quick, but I don't want it to be public. I just want to make sure it's okay to talk about this publicly. So check your Discord here in a second, Zini. I had an interesting conversation earlier, and it's gotten me thinking. And I wanted to talk about it, but it was a conversation I had privately with Zini. It's no big deal. It's not anything like mysterious or secret. But if I have a conversation with somebody privately, I treat that as a private conversation, and I just wanted to, make sure that was cool to talk about before I did that publicly. But he brought up a very interesting point. Are you still here, Shamu? My son, you watching? Because this conversation is going to involve sharks. All right. let's move on to the next tank. Wow, I just thumped my ass into my shrimp tank, and it wobbled, but it didn't fall. So the other night, I set my shrimp tank up here on the corner, and Ark was saying it looked really unstable. But one of the things I did was I turned it around. I was kind of imagining we'd be looking at it from the outside of the pond looking in. But I realized that if I did that, when you looked at the pond from the pond side, you saw the back of the tank and it looked like crap. And so if I put it this way, you know, in the same way that when you're on the back side of the pond and you see all the wires and everything on the floor, well, on the back side of that pond, you're just going to see the back of the shrimp tank, just like you see the outside and the plumbing of the pipes and everything back here. So from the inside, it just looks so much better. And so I turned it around today. But the reason I put it round side out was because of the rounded front. It's a bow front, and it gave me a little more smoothness around the corner. Now I got these two triangular points sticking out. And of course, I'm also trying to get past my table that's sitting right there. And you can see that's not a lot of space between the table and that. And I just bumped it pretty hard. The water sloshed around inside of it, but it did not budge. So I feel pretty confident that that's going to be fine, unless I really fucking rail into it. And in that case, you know, it's my fault, not the tanks. All right, I did not see my new betta fish when I looked in here last night, but there's a lot of places for a small betta fish to hide. So I don't know if that's actually anything to worry about. But keep your eyes open. I did put a new betta fish in this tank. Oh, there he is right there. Never mind. Give him a little bit of light so you can see him a little better. So that's my new betta. And believe me, the camera does not do it justice. The blues are like a turquoise and they're iridescent. It's absolutely amazing. It's a gorgeous little koi betta. It's got red, white, and blue all over it. And again, the blue is more of a, I don't know what the hell he just got because I didn't put any food in the tank yet, but he was eating something. The blue is more of like a turquoise than a blue. And it just, the blue fades into white and it's just amazing looking. It's really, really beautiful. So that's my new betta that's in this tank. And if you haven't seen it yet, I also got a new Bashir. So we'll be seeing that when we get around to that tank too. All right, we're going to do some vibra bites in here. God, I just keep losing people tonight. What the hell? Going to be down in the single digits any second now. Maybe I should do mushrooms more. Apparently it makes for a better show. Anna, how are you this evening? All right, Shamu is still here. I just asked you if you were still here, Shamu. Did you answer me or not? Maybe, I don't know. 12 pounds, nice. Yeah, I would say that ought to last you for a little while. I should probably try doing that, and I intend to. Now that I got the one big 10, I've always wanted to do like one big Christmas tree size plant. Now in my case, I can't do 12 feet because I'm limited to the space inside my tent, but I could do a 5-foot tall plant that the base of it pretty much fills that tent and then comes Christmas tree size. I've always wanted to do that, but I'm not the kind of person that can get large quantities of weed and then budget it for long periods of time, which is why I've always grown it the way I do, where I get this sort of rapid overturn. I don't get a whole lot at any one time, maybe an ounce or two, but I get that every week or every 5 days. I would be pulling another ounce out or something, and it would, that way I would always have weed. And it also allowed me to rotate through different strains, and I wasn't just, going through 12 pounds of the same weed until it was finally gone. That would drive me crazy. Oh, I just asked if you were still there. I wanted to talk about sharks tonight a little bit. And I wanted to talk about keeping sharks in a group specifically. And if there's anybody that would be interested in talking about keeping sharks in a group, I can't imagine who it would be if not you. And so I wanted to make sure you were still here before I started talking about that. Yeah, I was just about to ask that, Cecil. As soon as I was saying that, I was realizing you probably grew 4 different plants, and that would give you a variety to work through. And then, of course, growing the ones inside, you could grow, 6 different plants. So, yeah, I agree. Like, man, just smoke. Even when I do like a whole ounce of something, by the end of the ounce, like I'm ready for a different, I'm ready for something different. I usually have multiple strains on hand so I can mix it up, on a daily basis. But sometimes I'm just stuck with like, I got a couple ounces of this weed and I've got to go through it, and it just gets old after a while. So getting to my conversation about the keeping multiple sharks together, Zini brought up an interesting point. We're talking about Shamu's endless struggle to get, this group of sharks to cohabitate peacefully in his tank, and so on and so forth. And while Zini and I have slightly different opinion on whether or not this will or won't be successful, he did bring up an interesting point that I had not thought about. And the more I think about it, the more interesting I find it. And the point is not so much about the fish's behavior itself, but it's people's perception of that behavior. And to put it in plainest terms, we're told by everybody that you shouldn't keep a group of sharks together because they're aggressive and they'll fight, and one shark may injure or kill another shark. So don't keep sharks together. And therefore, any person, any fish keeper that does keep some sharks together and experiences some aggression, and one shark injures another or something like that, the fish police come out of the woodwork, and you're a terrible fish keeper and you should know better than to keep those fish together. And they get shamed for keeping these fish that were clearly not supposed to keep together. At the same time, we just readily accept the fact that I'm told all the time by people, oh, you can keep angelfish in a tank together. Like, dude, I've tried. Angelfish are fucking aggressive. I've had angelfish kill other angelfish. Nobody ever tells me I'm a bad fish keeper. I'm like, oh, that's just what angelfish do. They're cichlids. It's just built in. We accept the idea that, well, you're going to do an African cichlid tank. Sometimes you're going to get that bastard in there that kills them. That's just how it goes with African cichlid tanks. It's built in. So nobody gets called a bad fish keeper when one of their African cichlids kills another one of their fish, because we expect that. Like, why is it different? Like, it doesn't make any sense that, like, we don't accept it in this fish, even though it's the exact same behavior, but it's fine in these fish simply because we've just come to accept that that's how that is. Why don't we just come to accept that that's how that is with sharks? You can keep a group of sharks together. You just have to deal with the aggression and figure out, when you've got that hyper aggressive one, you need to remove it or whatever. Just build that into the ethos of shark keeping, and then suddenly nobody's a monster for keeping multiple sharks together or whatever. And for me, it got me thinking about the whole how people are influenced and, not thinking for themselves as opposed to just, believing what they're told to, how you're supposed to respond to stuff and, what's acceptable and not. And, again, it was just an interesting thought that I'd never really considered before. Hey, Red Ed, how are you this evening? TK, how are you? Well, betta fish are kind of the same. I don't know. Betta fish, I think, go to a different level. Like it's not like there could be aggression or whatever. And see, that's where I stand with the sharks. My opinion, sharks are just aggressive fish. Like, even if you keep a group of them together, they're just always going to be aggressive towards each other. So if you don't mind that, and if you just say, okay, well, these fish can cope, it's not hurting anything, they're just, then that's fine. I don't like to see that. I don't like to see the aggression. And so I wouldn't try to do that. I've kept sharks with other fish that they were aggressive towards, and I've moved them because of the other fish being picked on so much by the shark. They're fucking asshole fish. They really are. They're awesome. I love them. They're gorgeous. Their behavior is amazing. But they are bastards. They really are. Sharks are not nice fish. So again, it just depends on your own personal what you're willing to accept. If you're willing to accept some aggression between your angelfish, then I don't see why you wouldn't be willing to accept some aggression between your sharks or whatever. It's just a matter of how it gets presented to us, and then whether we just run with what we're given versus stopping and thinking about it for a minute. All right, just throwing some Vibra Bites in here too. Vibra Bites is pretty much my main go-to food. And I do have the red tail shark in here that Shamu gave me because it was hyper aggressive in his tank and he needed to find a new home for it. So I've got it in there living by itself. Well, by itself in shark terms. And it does just fine. It darts out every now and again and chases some of the some of the tetras around for a brief dash and then goes back to hiding or whatever. So it's not problematic in this tank at all. But I am thinking that it's going to be time to get in there soon and do a little bit of gardening. That plant's getting, that plant, yeah, I ought to just look at it that way. That plant's getting a little lush at this point. It's time to add some fish tank to it. All right, let me see where I was. Yes, you can definitely have a sorority tank with the bettas. I've never tried a betta sorority. I have had sorority tanks, but that was only guppies, to segregate for breeding purposes. I've never done the betta. I have thought about getting a female betta to put in the tank with a male and just to see if they breed just for the fuck of it. But I've never really gone through with that. You all know I'm just not really interested in the breeding thing or whatever. Again, it would just be more of a curiosity to see if they would do it. I've never had I've never seen one of the males bubble nesting. I've never seen any of my gouramis do the bubble nesting thing. Like, in all the years I've been keeping bubble nesters, I've never seen them do that. And I always thought it would be kind of cool. Although I did in the 40 over here, there was the other day when I came in to clean out a bunch of the duckweed, there was like a big, it looked like somebody spit in my tank, or like how the insects will lay their eggs in that like foamy looking stuff. It looked like some of that was floating on the surface, and I suspected that possibly that could have been from the betta fish. I've never seen it in that tank before, so it's not like sea foam. It didn't just develop a big patch of fucking foamy looking spit in the tank, So I'm guessing it was probably the betta fish. I don't know what else would have done that. I did need to, we do need to get into my terrarium here one of these days and trim the terrarium. I'll wait for Laura to be here for that show. And I don't feel like getting into that tonight. I'll get the feeding done. And then again, we got a couple of things I want to do. And then we'll wrap it up. I'm toying with the idea. I'm just going to wait and see how I feel tomorrow evening when, again, I'm just going to be stuck in the house all day. So I might do like a surprise afternoon live stream or something like that, just for something to do tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. But keep half an eye on your notifications, or set the notification if you haven't already. And that way, if I do decide to, you'll get the notification. I will be mindful of Shirley's live stream. I will not step on her toes. You know, I know she's got the one scheduled or whatever for, I believe it's 7 o'clock my time. So I'll either do an after show when she's done, or I'll do like a mid-afternoon show just for something to do. Again, just a thought rolling through my head. Don't put a whole lot of stock in that yet, but I am throwing that out there officially. All right, sticking with the Vibrobites theme. Let me get a swig of my iced tea too. One thing I will say about the nicotine is when I puff on the pen, it just makes me thirsty. I got two different types right now. I've got the one which is the Snickerdoodle, which I really like, but it's really sweet. Like, it makes my mouth feel like I've been eating candy. It's so sweet. And then I got another one that's actually like fruit flavor. It's like a strawberry, pomegranate, vanilla or something. And it's got a nice flavor to it, but it's bone dry. Like, I puff on it and like my mouth feels dry after I've puffed on it. Like, you ever drink a really dry wine? It's like that, except in vapor version. Like, it feels like I'm inhaling powder and dust. So it tastes nice, but it's got a really strange dry sensation in my mouth, and I don't really like it. I'd almost prefer the sweet, sugary stuff. But either way, when I'm done hitting on either one, I feel like I need to have some, something to wash my mouth out and have a drink. I keep walking over to pick up my phone instead of my tablet. Oh, Kendra, how are you? Look at that mushroom you got there, Kendra. The crypt is a beast. Fish guy, hello. Well, thank you. Direwolf, hello. How are you this evening? Oh no, get like the desserty flavor vapes, like the custard pie and sugar cream vanilla ice cream flavor. If you get those kind of flavors, they're sweet as shit. I've never had a vape that was like dry in my mouth before, and this banana strawberry stuff or whatever the fuck it is, it's strange. Again, no other vape has been like that. They've all had that sort of sweet stickiness to them rather than that just dry dustiness. It's strange. Again, nice flavor. I get a nice buzz off of it. I feel the effects of it the same way and everything. It just makes my mouth feel weird. I gotta do something after the sugary stuff. I don't necessarily have to. The dry stuff I do. I feel like you could strike a match on my tongue after I've taken a couple of puffs off of this stuff. It's weird. Polypterus over here, the great wizard Queequeg, is surfing the glass for some reason this evening. I wonder if it's ready for some feeding time, although it's got a tank full of shrimp. The other day I counted 41 shrimp still in there, and that was just what I could see. So I'm sure there's more than that. And for as terrible of a hunter as this fish is, and as blind as it is, and as disinterested in the shrimp. I mean, I saw it the other day. A shrimp crawled up to it as it was sort of walking across the bottom, and it bumped into the shrimp's feelers with its face and stopped because it felt the shrimp in front of it, and then just turned around and crawled right past the shrimp and wasn't interested in it. But when I put the pellet food and stuff in there, it smells it and then immediately starts hunting around for it. And so it seems more interested in prepared food than the shrimp anyway. And so for now, I'm not going to add any more shrimp to that tank. I'm just going to leave them alone. And I think with the amount I have in there, they will establish a breeding colony within the tank, and I'll just have a tank loaded with shrimp. And so that polypterus will be able to eat whenever, it can catch something. Just give it a natural food source in the tank. Daphnia? I don't know. I've never bothered with feeding that kind of stuff. The tablet is really digging, but it is. So I think we're just my tablet being stupid. Yeah, I'm Shamu's backup plan. Although I only have ever taken one fish from him. He has offered me more than one, but I've declined on most occasions. Oh, and when I met up with Kane today and I gave him that 10-gallon tank, he offered me a 5.5 and just said, I don't know if you'd be interested or not, but would you want a 5.5? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't know what I'd do with it or where I'd put it, but I've never had a 5.5 gallon before. And based on the 6-gallon tank that Steve gave me, I think it'd just be a really cool size to do something really small with, like just put some snails and some shrimp in it, or maybe just keep it as a betta tank. Do maybe some embers or some endlers. I could do something with a little 5.5 gallon tank, and that's so small I can stick it on a shelf somewhere probably. Kendra, thank you. 600 gallons, good grief. Where do I get my plants? Most of the plants that I have probably originally came from either PetSmart or Petco. I did buy some plants down at House of Tropicals, which is like a privately owned, big fish store about an hour away from me. But it has been years since I bought plants. They just divide and I spread them around. When you really start looking, you'll realize I only have, a handful of different plants, but they're all spread out throughout my tank. And of course, because they've been there for as long as they have, they're super lush and out of control. I'll give you a quick look before we go on to the next tank. So we got my discus tank here. I did just trim this recently. I pulled a lot of the crypt out of the front of that. But my red tiger lotus down here is out of control. I trimmed this recently too. I was checking to see if we have any flowers in there. There you go, Janice. There's some slapping pads we haven't had in a while. Hopefully I didn't slap all over the camera there and get the lens all wet. But this is my pride and joy. This is my giant Anubias that is growing up out of my 125. I like to walk around behind this one and look through from the backside because these leaves look amazing when they're backlit. And you can see the size of the rhizome there. It's like a freaking tree trunk. So again, it's all basically the same plants in most every place. And then of course with the pond, I have potted plants and house plants and, a lot of plants that you would typically think would be submerged will also grow just fine. Like this is water sprite. Water sprite is just a type of fern. So you can grow water sprite out of the water just as easily as you can grow it underwater. Same holds with Java fern. You can grow Java fern out of the water. Because again, it's just a type of fern. It's just a type of fern that will also grow underwater. All right, we're going to skip the 29 because my lights are fucked up in here and it doesn't look very good. And there's hardly any fish left in this tank anyway. This is going to get a revamp pretty soon. We will save the Polypterus tank. He's down there hunting for pellets in the corner right now. So we'll save the Polypterus tank for later because that one's fun to watch for an extended period of time. But we'll get the other betta fish fed. This is my little no face. Is this fish's name? I don't name many of my fish, but a few of them get a name, and that is No Face. If you're familiar with Miyazaki Studio Ghibli, you'll know who No Face is. And yes, I do need to get in here and do something with all the crazy amount of algae. It's all over the glass. I apologize. But this is another tank I got to just do something with. It's got so much hair algae in there. I did get in there the other day and clear a bunch of the hair algae out by hand. I just like scooped as much out as I could get by hand. I scooped a bunch of the Java moss out of there. That opened it up a little bit. And at least let you see the fish a little bit. Now my pond feels cold compared to that tank. Of course, the tank is heated and the pond is not. I have had my space heater blowing into the room for the last 2 hours though, so it is toasty warm in here. It's almost getting to the point where it's too warm. Once I settle down and moving around, it'll cool down for me. But right now, I feel like I'm just on the edge of breaking into a sweat, which is kind of nice considering it's 0 degrees outside. We got more snow this afternoon. Not a lot, but it still counted as snow. Phil's fan, how are you? Shirley, my girly, how are you? Oh, have fun with your taxes there, Kendra, if you're still listening. Right. Just getting caught up on the comments. Yes, Phil's fan. I've actually bought fish from that fish place. I was given very bad information about the fish I bought. I was assured that the, what did I get? If you'll remember way back in the day, some of you might remember I had a T-bar cichlid. I was sold that T-bar cichlid to go in a 20 long. I was assured that it would be fine in there. It was not. It wound up going in a 55 eventually and got about 5 inches. But I was sold that for a. I went up there to get a keyhole cichlid, but they didn't have any, and so he sold me the T-bar instead. But I have been there. It's a pretty cool place, but it's about an hour and 20-minute drive for me. I got to go up to 30 and then run all the way down 30 into Lancaster or whatever they call it. I grew up calling it Lancaster, and then as I got older, I decided that that must be the way like South Baltimore people pronounce it because that's the way my mom pronounces it. And so I started pronouncing it Lancaster because there are places that are spelled the same way and it's pronounced Lancaster. And then recently somebody told me that the people that live there call it Lancaster. And so I should be calling it Lancaster. So I don't know what the fuck to call it anymore. I feel the same way about Wilkes Bar. I call it Wilkes Bar. I think other people call it Wilkes-Barre or something. Oh, you're quite welcome. That was a very brief tour indeed, but you seemed like you had probably not seen most of my tanks, so I'll give you a quick look around. Yeah, when I saw somebody say, "Hey, Phil," I was thinking, did I put my glasses on? It's not Phil, it's Phil's fan, like the Philadelphia Phils. It's a baseball team, I believe. Oh, I like blackbeard algae. I think blackbeard algae looks cool. I generally don't know why people complain about it. I don't even mind the hair algae if it stays under control. But when you have outbreaks like this tank, just it explodes and it gets ridiculous. So I definitely the filamentous stuff, the hair algae, is definitely my least favorite of the algae. Well, maybe diet. No, definitely the hair algae. Diatom's no big deal. Um, I like the Blackbeard though. I think the Blackbeard algae looks awesome. Here, look at this. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this or not. I have a power head in the back, and if you look against the back glass, see how the hair algae is just flowing on the glass? I think that looks amazing. I think it looks gorgeous. It's actually one of the common names for this kind of algae is called maiden's tresses, and it's beautiful. It really is. But when it gets out of control, it's just ridiculous. I used to have it in my gourami tank way back when I had the 3-spot gouramis. I had a bunch of opaline gouramis in there, and the whole back of the tank looked like it was covered in velvet. It was hair algae, but the gouramis kept it nibbled, and so it was like that long, uniformly like golf course manicured, but it was still hair algae. So the little short bit that was there was very soft and flowing. And with the current I had in the tank, like you could just see like waves going down the back of the tank. It was almost mesmerizing watching this algae moving the way it moved. It was gorgeous. I absolutely loved it. And over time, the tank changed, and the occupants changed, and then the cyanobacteria wound up replacing the fucking algae, and now I got more cyanobacteria in the tank than I do algae, and I got plenty of algae, believe me. All right, sticking with the vibra bites. That's pretty much, as I keep saying, my go-to food, except for specialty fish that need something specific. And then I do mix it up every now and again. I'll throw in granules or crumbles or something like that. Throw in wafer or something for everybody. But generally speaking, they get the vibra bites for the vast majority of their meals. All right, we'll do a little bit of feeding on this tank. Then we will get to doing some work. We'll put the tower back on the pond, and then we will install the... actually, we will try to feed the Polypterus first, and then we will install and do the work. I don't want to disturb him by putting the thing in there and get him all freaked out and then try to feed him after that. So I'll get my app turned on, and we'll see if we can zoom in on the phone. It's pretty easy to feed him. There's almost no current in the tank at all. It's completely still. So when I drop the little pellets in right above his head, they just float down on him, or her, I should say, and will eventually just start nibbling them up. So we should get to see some actual feeding action. All right, so I am turned on. How in the hell did I just get I didn't even know I could do a zoom in that tight before. So, all right, I got my app set up. We can do our zooms and all that kind of stuff. And we will... Oh, he's hunting a shrimp right now. Oh, he missed. I've never seen him get one yet. That was a fast dart, though. Good for you, little guy. Little girl. The Great Wizard. It's Lancaster. That's a new one altogether. I haven't heard that one yet. Let's see. One much Ben Oakart. I don't have any idea who he is. His name comes up all the time, so he must be a popular fish person. Oh, yeah, we were talking about that the other night. He's down south somewhere and lost all his power for like a week or something. That fucking sucks. That's why I have a generator. The first time I lost power for a week while I had fish, and I had to spend the entire week, with battery-powered air pumps and pouring water in the tanks and all that stuff. I went out and got a small generator, and then later I upgraded and got a whole house-sized generator, so I run the whole house if the power goes out now. Oh, it's the Phillies, not the Phils. Well, you guys know how I am with sports ball. You ought to be fucking excited that I knew it was a baseball team. I agree, Shirley. I think blackbeard algae is awesome, as long as it stays under control. It can become problematic. So it's the Philadelphia Phillies, not the Philadelphia Phils. I'll probably remember that till the end of the sentence. I agree, Zini. That new discus looks amazing in there. That was a good call putting that in there. We have not fed the great wizard Kwan yet. We're going to get to that in a minute. That is crypt. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but it's Wendetti or whatever. If you look that up, if you get the spelling even close, you'll find it. It's a very common one. It's like a reddish crypt. Yeah, Lancaster's not a. I'm sure Zini's got a lot of Lancasters over where he is. Yeah, I was gonna say Lancaster's a very common town name. Oh, good for Anita. What a little hero. Good grief. That's a good idea, though. I'd never even considered doing that. So if that was her original own idea, good for her. That was very innovative. Told you she's a little superstar. All right, let's get on to feeding the great wizard. All we got to do is get the camera lined up mostly, and then I can just zoom in from here once we figure out exactly where the fish actually is at the moment. And that could be in a lot of places. Oh, she's right over here. So I'm going to drop some pellets right in the middle there, and we'll see what she does. So I feed her blackworm pellets. They're really small, and they're also really stinky. So I assume when they go in the tank, she smells them immediately. And they're really high protein. So this is food for her. And also anything she doesn't get, the shrimps eat. And of course, I do need to make sure the shrimp get food. I'm actually going to put kind of a lot. I pinched out a little too many pellets, but that's all right. Like I said, the shrimp need to eat too. They do get plenty of forage in the tank with the algae and stuff. But, making sure they get well-balanced fish food is probably important too. All right, right now she is right there. And let me get over here on my monitor so I can see what you see. All right, we got her on camera. You can see her well enough. Now, you can see she's starting to move and lift her head up, so she definitely smells the food now. She is so blind. She's a terrible hunter. She's adorable, and she's my favorite fish I've ever had so far. I think it's amazing. But my God, she is blind, and she literally just gropes around until she stumbles into the food. She's zeroing in on it. It's around there somewhere. She can tell. She figured it out finally. When she settles down, I'll zoom back in, but I want to make sure she's not just swimming all over the place. I don't want to chase her with the camera. Plus, this gives you a better feel for the scope. That's a 40 breeder that she's in, by the way, if you're wondering about scale and size and everything. So that's a 40-gallon tank. She finally settling in. There she goes. She finally found some of it. I'm telling you, her head to me looks more like a snake than a fish. Like if you took her pectoral fins away, it would just look like a snake with gills. I guess the gills kind of throw the snake thing. All right, let me find my tablet now that she's settled in and feeding. I don't have to keep focusing on the camera every 5 seconds. Oops, sorry. I was just trying to do that so you don't see all the flashing disco glare. All right, let me see where I was. Mike, how are you doing this evening? I think a Bashir and an Oscar would get along just fine. I don't see any reason why. And a 90-gallon tank is plenty big enough. I'm doing well enough, Mike. It looks like a snake's head fish. Yeah, an actual snake head doesn't look as much like a snake as this fish does, as far as I'm concerned. Now, again, mine's in a 40 now. It may outgrow the 40 at some point. I don't know, but it also may not. It may just be hot dog size when it's fully grown. They can get bigger than that, but this particular species in captivity usually stays around 7 or 8 inches, which again is kind of pushing it for a 40, but we'll see. You know, I've got options later down the road if necessary, but a 90 is plenty big enough. And my only concern about the Oscar would be if the Bashir was small, the Oscar may try to eat the Bashir like as though it was a worm or something. And so as long as the Bashir is large enough that the Oscar can't eat it, the Bashir is certainly not going to try to eat the Oscar. And they're as non-aggressive as you can fucking imagine when it comes to fish. So I don't think you're going to have any problem keeping an Oscar and a Bashir together. And that, of course, is based on my, 1 week's worth of experience with owning one. But I did do a lot of reading, and Zini's had a lot of experience over the years, and I've been talking to him about it. So I feel quite confident saying that you'll be fine doing that. I don't know how fast they grow. Like I said, you'll have to ask Zini about that. This is the first one I've ever had. I'm trying not to grow it out fast. My regular viewers know that if I've got fish like my discus, for example, I didn't want them to get huge because of the amount of them I have in the tank. 10 really large discus is a lot of fish. And so by keeping the water temperatures at the lower end of the fish's comfortable zone, that slows their metabolism down. Feeding them less, feeding them enough. You want to keep them healthy, but you don't have to just feed the shit out of them. If you want them to grow really big, then you do want to keep the water warmer. You want to give them lots of high protein food. And during that initial sort of early period in their life where they're growing really fast, they'll pack the weight on and their overall adult size will be much larger. I've seen this with snakes, like it's extreme with snakes. I've seen boa constrictors that were 2 years old and were 1 inch in diameter and 3 feet long. And then I've seen boa constrictors that were 1 year old that were 5 feet long and 4 inches around in the middle. It all just depended on what the owner was feeding that snake during that first year or two of its early life, where it was growing really fast. You can just pack the weight on, or not. And so I'm going to try to keep this one a little on the smaller side, but I am feeding it really high protein food, and it does have a tank full of unlimited shrimp to eat. The only thing I can say is that I got the water set at 75 degrees, so it's at the bottom end of its ideal temperature. And so hopefully that will prevent it from getting too big. But again, a 90 is, there's no website out there that's going to say a 90 is too small for a Bashir, even full grown. Well, there's not a lot of research to do about the different breeds, or the different species, rather. The Senegal is the smaller one, and that can get up to a foot or more in the wild. The other one, the ornate, and I think there's one other one that you can commonly get in the hobby. Both of those get like 2 feet or more in the wild. They get big, really big. And then there's one that does stay small and actually stays smaller than the Senegal, which is what you're looking at now. That's what the Great Wizard Kwan is. And the one that stays smaller is only slightly smaller and is very rare. And so presumably, if you could even find it, it would also be very expensive. My personal favorite is the ornate. I mean, obviously, based on its name, you can imagine that they're very attractive. But they get big. They just get really big. So I think the Senegals are a little on the boring side from coloration perspective. They're just kind of tan with a light belly. They got the counter shading a little bit, and that's about all. But they're the only one that I could reasonably think about fitting in any of my tanks. And again, we're shooting for this being its forever tank, and we'll see in a year or two if that's going to be the case or not. All right, let's, well, I guess she's still in there groping around for them pellets. We'll give it a few more minutes, but I do want to get that filter put in there so we can get the tower put back on the pond. And then I can sit down, hang out for a little while, and by then it looks like it's going to be an evening because we're already well after 9. All right, let me find another one of these little baby bird hit buds from the stupid fucking weed I had to buy today at the goddamn weed store. I was thinking about it today. Just like how fucking weird the world, like life turns out to be. When I was young, back in the 80s, teenager smoking weed back in the woods with my buddies, we used to fantasize about the day that, weed would be legal. It would be like it was over in, Denmark or wherever, and you could just go to a store and smoke or buy hash, and like, just how fucking amazing would that be? And we used to just dream about that day, and that day is long coming when I can go to the weed store anytime I want. And what do? I complain about the fucking weed store, and I complain about the quality of the weed that I get from there. But when you put things in context, it's not as bad as it sounds. First of all, I'm fully aware of the fact that if I could take the shit that I got today that I'm complaining about and go back in time and give this to myself back in the 80s and say, this is what you'll be able to get in stores one day, I would have been doing cartwheels. I would have thought this is like Superman weed that came from outer space. This is like nothing I would have ever experienced at that point in my life. Having said that, I've also been growing my own weed for 20 years. I'm not used to paying for weed. I'm used to really good quality. It's not all bone dry. It's not all harsh on the throat. The weed from the store is potent, but it's not necessarily that good. It's again, it's really dry, it's really harsh. I'm just not a huge fan of store-bought weed. And even though it's a lot cheaper than the black market prices I used to pay back in the day, the idea of getting a half ounce of anything for $80 is insane. But it's still $80 that I don't fucking have right now. That I had to spend on fucking weed when I'm used to just opening a jar and just having weed. So I don't feel like I'm out of my place by complaining about the damn weed store today. But it is weird, when you think about the whole scope of like from my teenage self to now. Be careful what you wish for. You just may get it. I don't know if you can see that shrimp right in front of its mouth, but it's literally like pushing a shrimp out of its way to look for more of those pellets. Like all it has to do is open its mouth right now and it'll eat that shrimp, and it's ignoring it to go after those pellets. So I really don't think I have to worry about the shrimp population in this tank being devastated by the mighty hunter that we're witnessing right now. I think my skirt tetras are probably more effective hunters than she is. I don't know how they survive in the wild. Well, they root around at night and they root around in the substrate and they eat worms and little crustaceans. And, if they can snag a shrimp or something, they will. But they root around in the substrate. I actually see her all the time when I haven't put anything in the tank. She roots around in the substrates and comes up chewing stuff. She spits out sand and is clearly swallowing something else. So for the amount of years that this substrate has been in an active living tank, I probably have, stuff living in the substrate. I probably have, a rich, vibrant, ecosystem growing in that tank by now. And that fish finds food rooting through the substrate. So again, my concern about this fish, being a picky eater or not taking food or anything like that, like vanished on the first day I had it. Let's see. Oh, you should totally get one, Shamu. Lampreys? Don't lampreys like take bites out of other fish and like latch to their sides and chew on them or something? Lampreys are like fucking vampire monster fish. Oh, he's got an ornate? Oh, that's awesome. The ornates are fucking gorgeous. Yeah, I'm imagining any fish that could get up to a foot is going to do some pretty serious growing in its first year, 6, 7 inches. I don't know if there's any kind of formula you can go by, but most fish, in my experience, get up to like at least 75% of their full grown size within their early growth period, up to that first maybe 2 years. Again, depending on the life of the fish, if it's a guppy, obviously that happens much quicker. They only live 2 or 3 years. But a fish that, an Oscar that lives 10 or 12, 15 years, that first 2 is where they're really going to put on the weight and size. And then that slows down as they get older. So they will continue to get bigger. And eventually that Oscar may get up to a foot, but it's going to take 10 or 11 or 12 years of being well fed and everything else. And that's still going to be your maximum size. So most people have Oscars that are 8 inches or like that's how that sort of works. So I'm thinking the same thing with the Bashir here. Let's say 10 inches is what that's going to top out at. It might be 7 inches at the end of 2 years, and then slowly over the next decade would eventually get up to 10. And if that's the case, then I'm going to be good to go at least for a while. I figure I've got a solid 1.5 to 2 years before I even need to start thinking about my next step if it does appear to be outgrowing the tank. Again, I'm going to try to limit its growth a little bit, keep it on the smaller side, and have it live out its life in this tank. Yeah, Tenopoma would be a good tank mate. Yeah, she just completely ignored that shrimp. And there's a bunch of them over there now because the shrimp smell the food too. I remember I said I threw like a bunch of extra pellets in. Like the shrimp are gathering around. Yes, Anna, they are jumpers. You definitely have to keep a very tight lid, and any little tiny gap, if there's a gap small enough for them to get out, they will. So definitely keep a tight lid on that. $39 months. Yeah, I didn't think you were seriously thinking about keeping lampreys. I think lampreys you can train to take pellets eventually. Yeah, well, the growth rate thing, yeah, I just try to give the general, basically what I just said is my sort of general thoughts on the growth. I get people asking me like they want really specific questions, like how big is it going to be after 2 years? I don't fucking know, dude. It depends on the genetics of that fish, what temperature you keep it at, how much you feed it. There's a lot of factors that like I can't tell you how big your fish is going to be in X amount of time. I can say they grow, whatever it says on the label, or whatever it says on the box. If it says 6 inches, you can figure after maybe 2 years, it's going to be about 75% of that probably. Um, just as a rule of thumb, again, that's not every fish. It depends on how you feed it. But that's kind of how that growth rate works. Like it, again, all these non-determinate growers, reptiles, snakes, fish, cold-blooded animals, they grow fast when they're young. They go through their maturity phase. They become mature, and then that growth rate slows down. And the older they get, the slower it becomes. But it goes on forever. As long as they're alive, they're still growing. They're not like us that reach a maximum, growth, and then we just start getting older and falling apart. Yeah, well, killifish again are those fish that live a very short lifespan, so you can condense all of that down. A guppy is going to be its maximum size within a few months. They're going to be breeding already, but they only live 2 or 3 years. So if you scale that and say, okay, a fish that lives 100 years, a koi is not going to be 75% of its overall potential in the first 2 years. A koi might be 75% of its overall potential in the first 25 years, but koi can live 200 years. A fish that lives 20 years, that's maybe going to be a 3 or 4 year period in the beginning. A fish that lives 10, it's going to be a 2 year period. So everything is scalable to the age and how long the fish is going to be growing, etc. Obviously, a very short-lived fish isn't, it ain't going to take a fish that lives 3 years, 5 years to grow into its full size. It's got to do everything and be done within 3 years. My Tenopoma kind of did that too. It grew at a fairly steady pace while it was smaller. And then, like, when I moved it finally started outgrowing the 29 I had it in. And when I moved it to the 55, like a year later, it started getting bigger. Like, and then, like, it really came into its full size, like in year 4 and 5. It really started putting on the weight. It wound up living almost 12 years and was fucking huge by the time it finally died. But they're only supposed to live like 5 to 7. So again, getting 12 years out of that fish, it was larger than what you would expect one to look like. Yeah, we hear you. Squeaker's here. All right, everybody, let's get on with this. This is not going to be super complicated or take a lot of time, but we do need to get it done. All right, he came in, he walked around the pond, said hello, and walked right back out. So that was Squeaker, everybody. All right, I have this sponge filter. I did get the hoses put on it today. I had to heat them up and soften them because they were too small to fit over the nipples. And so everything should work fine. I should be able to just slide both ends on, stick that in there and turn it on. Shouldn't be a big deal. I'm actually going to go in from the front at first. And then I'll move the hose through after it's installed. All right, let's see what we're doing. I'm going to put it in next to the filter that's already in there, and eventually we're going to take that one out, I think, and just use this, but I'm going to leave this one in here long enough to get cycled in, and once this one's fully cycled, we can pull this one out of here. I don't particularly care for that one. So that's there, and then we'll move the hose under the lid to the back. Make sure it's not creating any gaps that anybody can jump out of. And I do need to install a backflow check valve because we're going to be putting this pump on the floor. If you're putting your pump above the level of the tank, you don't need to worry about the backflow check valve because the water won't flow up to the pump. But if your pump is on the floor, and you don't have a backflow check valve and your power goes out, when the air pressure stops positively pushing air through the line, you will get water that can sort of, it's capillary action. You know how like on the edge of your glass, if you look, the water looks like kind of climbing up the edge of the glass a little bit. Well, if you do that in a narrow enough tube, it just keeps climbing. And eventually, if it goes over the top, it will self-siphon. It will set up a siphon and start draining your tank. I've had it happen to me. I never used to take that seriously, and I never used to put these check valves on. And then that happened. And now I always put these check valves on because I had water all over my floor. It was a 40-gallon tank, and I lost about 3 inches of water out of it before I realized what was happening. So I always put these little check valves on. I recommend them. You do too. Provided the pump is going to be below the level of the tank. And you always want to look at the valve. It's got a little arrow on it and tells you which way the airflow is, and make sure you get it the right direction. If you put it the wrong direction, nothing happens because, well, that's how it's designed to work. It prevents the air from flowing backwards through the line, and that way it won't set up a siphon if the power fails. All right, let's get this down in the back. I think I can get this hose stuffed down there somehow. There we go. I don't know why it wasn't going in there. All right. And let me see. I got my pump over here. I need to order more of these. I'm out. These are the little Tetra Whisper pumps, and I think they're like $10 or $12 a piece. Whenever I order one, I usually order 2 or 3. Sometimes you can even get a deal, like a 3-pack for, you know, save a little money. And they wear out over time, or I need a little project here. I need to just put an air hose in a bucket for some reason. So it's always nice to have 1 or 2 of these on hand, and I've used up all the last ones that I've had. Oh, never mind. I expanded this end so much that it's not even fitting on there. So let's cut that expanded part off. The air hose intake line on the filter was much, much larger than the diameter of my regular standard air hose. And then the nipple on the air pump here is slightly smaller. So there we go. Perfect. And now we'll get that plugged in. Yeah, I need to go get a razor blade and scrape that back glass so we can get those suction cups to stick. I was afraid that was going to happen. I hoped I could just smoosh it on there and it would work, but it's got algae growing all over it. And it's not getting a good seal. So we'll just get a handy dandy razor blade. And I'll just scrape the shit out of a bunch of the glass back here. All the algae that's going to get kicked loose and swirled around the tank will just be food for the shrimp. So I'm not worried about that. So remember, this tank, this is the only filtration on this tank. It doesn't have an actual mechanical filter. It's just biofiltration. Don't even have a power head in here. There's no water flow except for whatever water flow is caused by the bubbles. So I wouldn't exactly say this is an unfiltered tank. All right. Lift that up to the surface. Angle it that way. Perfect. All right, how's that look? It looks a lot better than that other one with those big chunky bubbles and whatnot. Once I move the one that's in the corner out, we can slide the one I just installed over, and so it won't be like just so in your face like that. I will also probably do something, get a plant or a rock or a piece of woodwork or something to put in front of that. I really hate the sight of the plumbing inside the fish tanks, but you know, it's a fish tank, so I got to have it. So we'll see what we can do about that. If nothing else, I might be able to darken the tube so you don't see the white column of bubbles rising up through it. Although over time, it may just get a, you know, patina of growth on it, and you may not really notice it anyway. So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, let's move on and get the tower put back in the pond. See if I gotta get caught up on any comments. Yeah, I agree 100% there, Mike. The temperature directly affects their metabolism. So the warmer it is, the faster they grow, the faster they go through their life cycle. They'll just burn out faster. It's like a fire. The hotter you burn it, the faster, you know, you get a lot of fire, but it also burns out a lot faster. So if you want your fish to grow really big and you keep it in warm water, you know, you feed it a lot, that's fine, but it's probably not going to, you know, get a whole lot beyond its expiration date when you grow them like that. Yeah, koi are the cold water fish, and they got that way, way slower metabolism. That's interesting, Shirley. Yeah, I'm thinking, well, my first thought with that is that if the pump was working and pushing air through the line, there's no way water could have come through the line back into the pump itself while it was working. If maybe you say you had it on multiple tanks, maybe if that one particular line failed, then water could have come back into it and ruined the rest of the pump. But it's more likely that the pump failed and that allowed the water to come back through it. I don't see how the water could have moved through the line while the pump was still functioning, unless, again, that one line failed and that allowed the water to come back in and ruin the rest of the pump for everybody else. But again, I don't know. I don't know the details of what happened or whatever, so I'm not going to speculate further on that. All right, let's see. This is the direction I wanted to go in. There's a free Vibrobite for anybody that wants it in there. All right, so all I got to do is hook this edge on to the little metal hooks I have here. And then we got to stick this in place. Fit the tank into the notch. And that's all we got to do to get it in place. Now I just got to fill it with water, which requires me to get a hose. And I don't know where my regular hose went, so I'll use this one. What the fuck did I do with that hose? I knew I was going to do that sooner or later. Damn it, and I still blew bubbles back up into it when I dumped the water out. Some of that went straight down my throat, too. Tastes fresh, at least. God, it's been a long time since I got fish water in my mouth. I've never drank it before, so tonight was the first time I've ever drank fish water. All right, let me have a swig of my iced tea there to wash down the fish juice. Much more delicious. All right, and let me put a little bit of fish food in there since we just got that set up. That'll attract the fish in there a little bit. I was trying so hard to get that last little bubble out of the corner right here that I wound up sucking enough water that it set up a siphon, and it shoved the water through the hose into my mouth, and again straight down my throat. And then when I dumped the hose out, enough bubbles blew back up into the tank that there's more in there now than if I'd have just left it alone. So that totally did not work out to my advantage. All right, let's lower you down a little bit. So a good example is that the koi you see in there, they're a few years old now, maybe 3 years old or something. I don't know how long I've had this pond in here. Has it been 4 years yet? God, maybe it has been 4 years. I don't know. But those fish are at least 3 or 4. And I mean, you know how big koi can get. And that's how big they are after 3 or 4 years. So obviously the 18-month to 2-year time frame is all dependent upon the overall lifespan of the fish. And koi have extremely long lifespans. I think the oldest fish ever on record was a koi that was 223 or 227. We talked about this the other night, but I never did look it up. I've asked before, but we'll see. Computer, what was the oldest koi?
The earliest Federal Reserve coin was the penny, which was
Computer, stop. Computer, how long did the oldest koi fish live?
From a-z-animals.com. The oldest koi fish ever was named Hanako, and she lived to be 226 years old.
226. So I was in the window, but I didn't get the actual. I said 223 or 227, so I was close. All right, going to do another little baby bird bong hit here. Put a little smoke on the water. A little fire in the sky. All right, let me see. Get caught up on some comments here. Oh, the electricity went off. I got you. I got you. Yeah, I keep all of my fish in the 70s for the most part. Even my discus are at 79. Yeah, I don't go a whole lot by store information either. Some of the worst, and I mean this literally, some of the worst advice I've ever gotten about keeping fish has come from fish stores. And, I said that to somebody recently, and they're like, well, of course. And no, I've had, 12 years or something on YouTube. I've gotten a lot of bad fish advice on YouTube. But some of the worst advice I've ever gotten is from fish stores. Now, YouTube, you'd expect it. You got some random fucking, rando Joe on YouTube telling me that I'm supposed to feed my fish, beef heart or whatever. I don't give a fuck. That's just somebody on YouTube. When you go to a fish store, it's kind of like when you go to an auto dealer. Like, you kind of expect the person to know a little bit about the car they're fucking selling you or the product they sell. Like, if you can't trust the people that are selling you the fish, who can you trust? And you just can't. You just cannot trust the people that are selling you fish. They may be giving you good information. They may know what they're talking about, but they may not. And this goes for all stores. Like, I'm so sick of the idea that, local fish store, that automatically means it's a fucking amazing store with knowledgeable people and honest staff. And that's just a bunch of horse shit. There's tons and tons and tons of locally owned fish stores out there that'll rip you off in a heartbeat, that'll lie to you, that hire any old kid that comes in there and doesn't know jack shit about fish. That is just as likely in one of those kind of stores as it is a PetSmart. In fact, the PetSmart probably has some sort of at least minimal corporate training bullshit that they go through. Now, of course, that corporate training is just teaching them how to sell you stuff. But still, at least in that setting, there is some sort of structured, rather than here, we're just going to hire you. You can start by doing water changes and eventually you can start selling the fish kind of deal. So I always, again, to coin a phrase, I like to do my own research. Not that that's actually research, but I like to do a little reading up. If I'm not making an impulse purchase, I look at multiple sites. I try to get a lot of different people's perspective. I try to look at people that have owned these fish and what their actual real world experience with them is. I try to go to more reputable sources like Fish Base that gives you more just scientific kind of information. But yeah, you're not going to get a lot of good information out of a damn fish store. It sucks, but that's the reality of it. Holy crap. We never see Sassy down here, and look at her. I have never seen Sassy come down here and even look at the fish tank before, and I've never seen her stand on her back legs. She's actually looking at the fish swimming around in the tower. Now the little man comes in here. Oh, that's what it is. My ashtray's sitting up there. The fish, the cats normally jump up and they sit on the edge right here, and they look at the pond. I've never seen Sassy do that, but the little old man sits there all the time and watches the fish. He actually puts his nose down to the water, and the little fish come up, and they do like the nose to nose thing. It's adorable. But I've never seen Sassy do it before. Oh, I wonder if that mysterious yellow circle lets me do like a super zoom if I tap on that. Yeah, I can zoom tight as shit if I tap on that. Holy crap. Maybe I finally figured out what that stupid yellow circle's for. Because that is a serious zoom. All right, let me get through these comments. We'll get the camera adjusted, and then we'll start winding down for the evening. I don't even see any point in sitting down and chatting at this point. We're just going to call it good. We'll maybe go look at the Polypterus a little bit more if you'd like. If it was a year old and 6 inches, I'd find that hard to believe. Yeah, when I was looking at the Bashir, I got Corey from Aquarium Co-op did a video, and he said a 29-gallon tank was fine, minimum, although he said bigger than that would be better, but he did say a 29, and then I saw all the way up to 120 gallons was the minimum for Senegal. Same species, not the big one, but same species. Everything from 29 to 120 gallons when I was looking. A lot of people said 55s, a bunch of people said 70s, a bunch of people said 90s. Again, I looked at the overall size, I looked at their lifespan, I kind of thought about how big it might get if I keep it at a lower temperature. And then, of course, I always know in my back pocket, I got the ace in the hole that I can always just take it down to House of Tropicals if it does get too big or problematic, or I can't put it in another tank or something like that. But I do have other options, and so I wasn't overly concerned about it outgrowing a 40. But based on the information I got, I don't know if it's going to or not. I'm just going to kind of wait and see. According to Corey, a 40 will be plenty big enough. According to some other people, a 40 is like a little tiny jail cell. So I don't know. We'll find out. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, exactly, Dire Wolf. I've gone in, again, I got some shops that are good. I got some shops that I've gone in that were terrible. I know, even the place I go into, House of Tropicals, I know that they've deliberately lied to people before. They've laughed, and then one of the owners was telling me a story about how he made up some bullshit. I couldn't believe he was telling me this. Like, I'm a customer. I'm a friendly customer. I used to go in there all the time, and, I gave them weed, and, but I was still just a customer. And he was just laughing, telling the story. Somebody had brought in a sunfish, just a regular old ordinary bluegill, sunfish that they had caught and had in a tank and finally, outgrew the tank. So they took it from him. Basically for free, just said, yeah, we'll see what we can do with it. And apparently somebody came in and didn't have any idea what it was, and they didn't have a label on it. And so he told the guy that, like, he just made up some name, like he called it an American cold water cichlid or something like that, and sold it to the guy for like $30. And he just thought that was hilarious that this guy bought a fucking stupid ass sunfish for $30 and whatnot. They've never ripped me off. I usually get my shit for free. Well, not free necessarily, but we exchange stuff for fish. I I didn't pay a penny for all my rainbow fish, you know, et cetera. Again, not in cash anyway. But other people, they charge $30 for a sunfish because they can fucking do that. And so it doesn't matter what store it is. Like, there's always going to be somebody in there that doesn't know what they're talking about. There's always going to be somebody in there that's willing to fucking lie to you to make another sale. I actually did want to talk about that a little bit too, since we're on the topic. I'll continue on that thought in a minute. Yeah, it's high school kids, after school jobs, summer jobs. It's people's first jobs. They don't intend on staying there. They're only going to work there until they get a better job, that kind of thing. So you're not expecting, you know, professional fish knowledge. All right. I'm on a non-stop end of ranting sessions. Yeah, it is kind of like that, Shamu. Like, you know, they're almost like he's bragging to me about, like, see how I fucked those other people over? Doesn't that make me cool that I did that? And I'm just thinking, like, dude, like, why are you fucking telling me this? I'm a customer. You know, again, I know I might be a sort of unusual customer relationship-wise, but I'm still a fucking customer. Like, you shouldn't be laughing about the way you fucking screw your customers. I just, whatever. He's the asshole brother. I don't think his other brother would ever do anything like that. The main business owner, this guy's like the fucking tag along. I think he owns like a 49% of the business or something like that. And none of the employees ever liked him. I never liked the guy. His brother's a solid guy, though. I like his brother. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, we'll move the camera into finale position. I'm not going to bother sitting down in front of the goldfish tank. We'll just go ahead and set the camera up, and I'll stand here for a minute. Hang on a minute. This fucking the thumb screw that keeps the up and down column locked in place, like, it doesn't hold it in place anymore, and the camera just falls. And so I got to screw it down so fucking tight to get it to stay there that I can't unscrew it when I want to. Maybe it's getting time to have a look at how that works, or get a new stand or something. I don't know. You guys good there? Can you see me? Yeah, it looks like we're good enough. I'm actually going to turn this disco ball light off since it's behind your head. It's not exactly like it's been a big mushroom party night anyway. So what got me thinking about this topic was when I was in the PetSmart the other day, I saw the what I think of as the Tom and Jerry fish bowl. You all know what I'm talking about, the round fish bowl with the lip around it. It's the cartoon fish bowl with the little goldfish in it. They sell those at PetSmart. And as I was walking past it, I thought about the idea that if I was an employee here, I would be telling people, don't buy this. This is junk. There's nothing you can own that will go in this tiny fucking tank. It wasn't even like a big one. It was like that big. It probably held maybe 1.5 quarts of water, maybe a half gallon. And all I kept thinking was, like, I couldn't sell that to people. I would recommend they get something else or not buy this or whatever. And then my next thought was, this is why you can't hold a job. Because as an employee, your job is not to help people. Your job is to sell stuff. A good example of how this works in a different capacity is a friend of mine works in his professional capacity, where I'll just say he represents a particular group of people, and he often has to negotiate against a different group of people that's hostile to his group of people, and he has to negotiate on their behalf. And some of the stuff he talks to me about, And the things he's fighting for, I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like, and he's like, I know, and I've gotten over this years ago. Like, I understand it now. But at first I was just like, dude, why are you fighting for that? And he's like, dude, that's my job. I'm not going in there and fighting for what I believe. My job is to represent these people and their interests, regardless of what I think about it. And that's what I do. I go in there and I fight for their, whatever. And that sort of put things in perspective for me, because that is what the job is. When you work at a car dealership, your job is not to send somebody home in the perfect car. It's to make the car dealership as much money as you can. You upsell, you get them into a car that's totally wrong for them, but it's a lot more expensive, then you're a good salesman. That's just the way that works. And so when you go into a pet store, whether you're shopping for a fish or a piece of equipment, their job is to sell you stuff. It's not to give you accurate information. It's not to, if they were literally telling you, oh, don't buy this brand of fish food, it's not very good or whatever. If their manager found out about that, they'd say, what the fuck are you doing? This is a product that we carry. You promote it. You don't tell people not to buy it. You encourage them to buy it. That's what we fucking pay you for, And so that's just how the retail world works. Their job is to sell you stuff, not to educate you. I do find it funny the way they like to throw their power around, where they won't let you buy a Molly because you only have a 10-gallon tank, but then they immediately recommend a Chinese algae eater for the same 10-gallon tank. I always just lie to those people. I don't care what fucking tank I'm putting the fish in. When they ask me what kind of tank is it going in, I always tell them, it's going to my 125. Oh, is there any? Nope, all alone, just by itself. Just this fish is going to my 125. Okay. And I never get any more questions about it. So that's always something you can do. You don't have to be honest with them either. If you think somebody's going to give you shit about, like, oh, what size tank do you have? Just fucking tell them you got a 90 and there's nothing else in it. This is the first fish I'm putting in it, so it'll be okay. And you won't get any more questions about whatever fish you're trying to buy. All right. No, my friend is definitely not in the car business. He is more in the world of politics. All right. So that was my rant. Got that out of my system. I did want to talk to Steve tonight, but he wasn't here. So hopefully Sunday night, if Steve is here, you guys are going to get to hear a lot about my kerosene heater and the fuel I'm using, because I'm going to have a conversation with Steve about that, and you're all just going to have to listen. So when Steve's here, we'll talk about that. Oh, that's a good one, Erica. I've got cats. That's why I'm buying these fish. Well, I'm not making a one-to-one comparison. I'm just making the example of an employee of anywhere. If your job is sales, that's what your job is. It's sales. It's not education. It's not making people feel warm and fuzzy. It's sales. If you work at a grocery store and you ring a register, your job isn't to promote products and stuff like that. But if you're the sales rep, it is. And so whether you're a car dealer or you're selling people fish, they're sales associates. That's what their title is. They're sales people, and that's what their job is. My wife worked retail for decades. Trust me, I know how they look at your numbers. They look at how much sales. They compare how many sales you've made compared to your, why are they selling 25 fish a day and you're only selling 4? What's going on? Why aren't you selling more fish? That's real. That happens. Those people, if they don't sell as many products as their coworkers do, they'll get talked to by their manager for not selling as many products as their coworkers do. That's just retail. That's the name of the game. It's selling stuff. That's all it is. Let's see. No, Steve is not going to be here tonight. That's what I was saying, that if Steve were here, we would have been talking about my fuel. I don't really know about the buying online versus buying from the stores. My assumption is the same people that provide the fish to the fish stores are the same people that are providing the fish. Like it's all the same sources. Like when you go to your local fish store, they're getting their fish from the same fucking place PetSmart is. Like they don't have a secret Tetra supplier. They just get it from the big cheap Tetra supplier. That's my assumption anyway. Now, specific stuff, or they know local breeders, and there are differences between those two stores. But on average, where is your local fish store getting their mollies from versus where PetSmart's getting their mollies from? Is there really a difference in quality of genetics or fish or whatever? I doubt it. What a Foxen family coming in hot the last minute. We're actually trying to roll on out of here. Had nitrous. Probably put a turbo fan on it. No, you were not, Zini. Oh, that's a bummer. All right. Well, that's where they really make their money, is selling you products after the fact. The greatest example of that is they used to do the $1 a gallon sale, but now it's usually like a 50% off the tanks kind of thing. The idea is we'll sell you a fish tank at a minimal profit. We hardly make any money off this fish tank at all. So once you buy the fish tank, now you got to buy substrate, and you got to buy filter material, and you got to buy water conditioner, and you got to buy fish, and you're clearly new at this, so your fish are going to die, and then you got to buy more fish, and then you got to buy more filter material, and then you got to buy this water clarifier that we're going to sell you, and you got to buy these magic wonder shells to put in your tank, and that's where they make their money. They give you the fish tank, almost tricking you into taking the fish tank so that they can sell you all the shit that goes with the fish tank. You notice those fish tank sales don't include a hood, they don't include lights, they don't include anything. You got to buy a heater. You just get the fish tank, and then you start pouring money into the fish tank, and that's where they make their money. I name my fish after great wizards. All right, everybody. I am going to call that good. We are at the end of the night, and I don't want to get any more worked up on ranting about stupid crap that doesn't matter. I'm going to try to start settling down at this point. All right. Well, that's the great wizard Dandalf, but my fish is the great wizard Queequeg. I'm dying for somebody to actually tell me what that means. I know what it means, and I know what it means to me personally because I took the actual real Latin definition and I modernized it to apply to my world, and it works out perfectly. It's a funny name. It's a Doctor Who reference that nobody will ever fucking get ever, unless you're a hardcore Doctor Who fan. And then it's got all kind of other subtle meaning that you have to tease through to even find out what it actually means. So it's an awesome name, and nobody knows how to pronounce it or how to spell it. So it's just a great name. Right, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, it's got to do with literature and language and stuff like that. It's not a direct translation. Well, it kind of is a direct translation, but it's a reference to language and how language is structured and that sort of thing. So it's not just a simple phrase, e pluribus unum, out of many one. It's not a direct translation like that. It has to do with literature and language and that sort of thing. So again, it doesn't matter. It's my name that I fucking love. I don't care if anybody else likes it or not. It doesn't matter. Anyway, on that note, I am going to say thanks for hanging out with me tonight. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Shirley did confirm she is doing her live stream tomorrow, or at least plans to. So if I do mine, it will be either early or after Shirley's done. Maybe we'll do an after show. It just depends on how I feel, that sort of thing. Either way, I will be back, as far as I know, Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And if you enjoyed the show and would like a special private members-only live stream on Wednesdays, you can join a membership. $2.99 a month gets you access to my Discord server, and you will also get access to the Wednesday members live stream that is for members only. So check that out if you're interested. Otherwise, come back Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I will say good night, my son. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Hey, there you are, Gene. All right, I'll say hello and goodbye at the same time. I guess I could just say aloha, and that'll cover both of them. All right, everybody, I will see you on Sunday. Thanks for hanging out, and good night.